This is day 244, my first philosophy class. When I was in my first year of college, I was in this philosophy class. I did not do well in the class at all. Apparently, you were not supposed to ask questions while studying a survey of world philosophies openly. If you are worthy, pay enough money, and attend the right schools, then you can eventually earn a degree that gives you the right to ask questions. My 18-year-old brain did not understand or even grasp this limitation, so I asked my questions and was rewarded with the letter grade of F. However, I did learn a lot from this class, but not from the textbook or instructor, rather the man who sat right next to me. One day, we were watching a video because this was the instructor's way of teaching, his video. We were watching a video on Plato's theory of forms, which was done by the public broadcasting system, filmed sometime in the early 60s. This film had the look and feel of Conan the Barbarian without the exceptional acting and the enthralling fight scenes. If you missed the sarcasm on that, this documentary was excruciatingly boring. I think my father taught me about Plato when I was a kid, and this documentary was rudimentary at best, which meant that I was disinterested to say the least. While I was scribbling my miserable, jumbled up emotions onto a scrap of piece of paper, an unkempt, silver-haired man in a tweed jacket next to me asked, "Do you play chess?" At first I was shocked because prior to this moment, I did not know this man even talked. I was equally surprised by his query because I loved playing chess. And for someone in public to ask me that question randomly was akin to someone asking me if I wanted to go to Disneyland. He did not wait for my response. He simply said, E4. This was the ultimate chess player query. I had one moment to prove my membership in this secret club and demonstrate my worthiness to be part of the chess community. My response? E6. Just a quick primer. E4 is the most popular opening move in chess. It is the opening where you move the king's pawn up 2 spaces to immediately claim a position in the center of the board. The usual response is E5, which is the same move by black and the opposition. E6 is not a common opening, but the beginning of a defensive strategy called the French defense. By playing that move, I signaled, A, that I knew how to play chess, and B, that I was good enough to know an alternative opening. We then played by whispering moves to each other during the documentary. We did not have a board, just played from memory. After about 10 moves, I was completely lost and could not accurately remember the location of all the pieces. I was not discovered because the class ended and we were dismissed from class. As we walked out of the room, I could still hear the documentary voice. I kind of wonder, do people get trained to speak like that on documentaries, or why do they all sound the same? Anyway, I could hear this voice going on. In the allegory of the cave, the prisoners chained inside are only able to see the shadows on the wall, cast by objects behind them. I felt for a moment that I was the same way, distantly remembering where my knight was supposed to be on that board in my head when I was interrupted by my newfound chess friend. "What are you doing tonight? You want to finish that game?" Later that night, my new silver-haired friend blew a long tendril of tobacco smoke in my face as I studied my precarious position. I really wanted a castle kingside, but if I did so, I would have a square unguarded, and he had a knight in a precarious position that could be really harmful to me. And this is what I hate about the French defense. All this energy to capture a single pawn in the opening moves, and you can never get that kingside protected. I lost that game, and then the next 5 games after that. When the games were over, we sat back in his studio apartment and started discussing, well, you guessed it, philosophy. As it turned out, this man had spent a lifetime studying world religions. He was a lexicon of the various phrases and concepts of the major world religions. He was particularly fascinated by Buddhism, But we spent most of our evening talking about practicing Hinduism. Here I was actually allowed to ask questions, and so I did. He seemed to know and understand quite a bit, and I spent several more hours trying to understand the basic tenets of the world religions that this man knew about. For several more days, I would show up at his place after philosophy class. He would beat me decidedly in chess for several games, and then he would sit back and answer my questions about the various mythologies in the world. This continued for most of the semester until one evening I beat him in a game of chess. Our relationship ended shortly after that, and I could never quite tell if it was because I beat him or I had just ran out of questions. Perhaps both. That was my first semester of college and my first college course. I received rather proudly, I might add, my letter grade of F, but left the experience much wiser about the world. Here are the 5 or so things that I learned that semester. Number 1, you should always play with people much stronger than you. That is the only way that you can improve. 2, be prepared. You never know when you'll have to answer the challenge E4. 3, we each have our own personal dharma, and the more we understand that and fulfill our own role, the happier we will be. 4, true knowledge and understanding come from contemplating abstract and eternal truths rather than relying solely on what we can see. And 5, my college grades meant absolutely nothing during the course of my life. Thank you.